What's up, y'all? Happy motherfucking 2021, and again, welcome to my 6th episode of Speak Her Truth. I haven't done one of these in quite some time because I realized trying to do one of these in-depth conversations once a week was kind of it was a big task to take on. This week we're going to talk about adoption. Today, as I'm filming, it's January, and my birthday just passed on January 5th. So whenever my birthday comes around, it brings up all the memories and all the thoughts of who I am, what my purpose is here in life, what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, my roots, my ancestry, my bloodlines. My birthday is kind of in the past, has been kind of a painful time of year. However, in the last year or two, I've found ways to make it, again, my own and to embrace it and to really connect with it. I'm hoping this video will help other people who are adopted. Even if you're not adopted, I'm hoping that this will help parents who are hoping to adopt, parents who are seeking adoption, soon-to-be parents. I'm hoping this will help adoptees, other adoptees who might feel a little bit lost or a little bit unsure of why they're even here and what the purpose of adoption is in like the bigger picture, like as far as the spiritual purpose. Okay, it's interesting because I've met a lot of adopted people because in my teenage years I was sent away to disciplinary schools and things like that. And so usually kids who are in those schools, I actually had a talk with the owner of the school who I became close with because I was there for so long, for years. And we actually would have these kind of semi-private talks about the school and the demographics of the school. And basically one time we were talking about how like it's something like 85% of the kids, of the girls who go to these schools are all adopted. And these are schools where borderline detention school that I was sent to. And so this is a school that parents have the option to send their children to. So it's not like it's court mandated or anything like that. So really high rates at this school of girls who were adopted. And so she and I were agreeing that we thought that statistic was pretty interesting, and I felt pretty sad, right? So I've met many adopted people, adopted girls, and who are now women like myself. Even the owner of this program was adopted herself. So I've been able to get a really good picture and kind of a nice spread of different types of people and hearing their experiences with their adoption story. And it's interesting because some people, like me, have a really hard time grasping it, and the adoption feels like a deep, painful uprooting. Even though we don't, most of us anyway, a lot of us don't have memories of it, but some of us do, right? Some of us were adopted later in life, so we have these memories. And for other people, I noticed it just didn't matter. Or at least that's how it seemed. At least that's how it came off to me. And some of the girls would say, like, it's fine with me, it didn't bother me. The owner of the program, who I had this conversation with, had this, and she was, at the time in her 50s, maybe 40s, and she had the same viewpoint. It just was not something that ever bothered her or that she felt made her, all that different from anybody else. So she, of course, these people still have other issues that, are burden them, but adoption just wasn't one of them. So I was adopted when I was 9 or 10 months old. I was born in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, okay? And so I don't have any memories, although there are photos that I can look at. And so I kind of have a feeling of that time, right? Even though I don't remember it, you can still dip into the feeling. And even when I look at the pictures and I think about what must have been going on for little me at that time, so much change was happening. And I've since gone to college and for a time was majoring in child development. And so I learned a lot about the development of the young, a baby's brain, and how much that they are actually aware of and how much they actually soak up during that period. those crucial months, right, of development and attachment. Being taken from one family to the next and one setting to the next was probably very stressful, although I think all babies are different and we all deal with it differently. I grew up to be somebody who always sought relationships as a way to comfort myself. I always was someone who at a really young age, I wanted to be in a relationship, and I always wanted the thought of being having a boyfriend was always very important to me. And then once I would get into relationships, I found myself in very codependent, usually abusive, definitely emotionally and verbally abusive, and then frequently physical and sexual abuse was almost always there. So my adoption story is I was adopted when I was about 9 or 10 months old from Honduras, and my mom brought me here, my adopted mom, Kathy Drake. She brought me here to Sacramento, California, and I grew up there until I was about 12 years old. When I was 11, she died. She had leukemia. And so I watched my mom slowly kind of fall apart, get really, really sick. She died in the hospital, and she basically died from the side effects of all of the treatments, and just her body just couldn't keep on. She was falling apart. And so that process from the time that she was diagnosed to the time that she died was probably less than a year. Although as a kid, I remember it being so much longer, but when I add up the dates, I'm like, whoa, it was really quick actually. And so we watched my mom slowly kind of, she could lose her battle with leukemia. So not only do I, on a cellular, physical, unconscious level, have some in my body, in my being, in my spirit, in my knowing, have this kind of separation from my birth mother. I can just imagine how she must have smelled and felt as a baby. And then from there, going into an orphanage until I was 9 or 10 months old, where I was around many babies and many different caretakers, and probably a very open environment. I just can imagine it being kind of echoey and loud, with probably less holding than I needed. So I imagine that I felt a lot of time like waiting for somebody to come get me or feed me sometimes. But I just can imagine, waiting my turn to be picked up and things like that, and kind of getting to a point where, like, I notice myself as an adult now, I'm very like chill, and I can withstand a whole lot of an intense amount of stress and pressure, I think. Which in some ways is good, in some ways is bad. It makes me, I'm driven, I'm hard fucking working. Can't nobody tell me different. I'm also have allowed like a ton of abuse and physical violation. And I continue to, on some level, being drawn to people who exhibited red flags very early on, but I would still move toward them. So my mom died when I was 11. She died actually 2 months before I turned 12. And so then we began the transition of who would take care of me, because she was a single mom. At the time we lived with my aunt, her sister, so we were already all in one household. This was, we moved together prior to my mom even getting sick. So the transition wasn't too crazy, because I just was still I just stayed in the same house with my aunt, who I was really close with anyway. But what ended up happening is my aunt was a single woman, still is a single woman. She was in the Army, the Army Reserves. She enjoyed her freedom. She had no kids. And so the arrangement for she and my mom and us girls, my sister was also adopted from Brazil. We adopted her when I was 7. So I have really beautiful memories of that. So we initially had moved in with my aunt as a way for cutting costs, and my mom and my aunt could, share the mortgage. and bills and things like that. And then also we had the benefit of, being close to our aunt, and my aunt being able to help my mom with childcare and things like that. So it was like a win-win situation for everybody. So when my mom died, it was a fairly smooth transition, right? We didn't have to move anywhere or anything like that. But what did happen is my mom was a really fucking bomb ass mom. She was the perfect amount of strict, fun, funny, playful, nurturing, kind, smart, educated, athletic, and just everything you would want a mom to be. So she had this beautiful balance of that. She was very educated, so we were always, she was on top of my schoolwork, and she checked my homework every day. And growing up now, having kids, like, I don't even check my kids' homework every day. It's fucking exhausting, right? Or at least my older one. So going from that kind of parenting and warmth and nurturing to my aunt, who basically like followed my mom anyway. My mom was the rock, It went from this structure and nurture to no structure, no nurture. The hugs, the kisses, the being tucked in at night, the home cooked meals, all of that stopped. Not only that, but I was allowed to quit all my after school activities. I didn't have to take Spanish classes anymore. I didn't have to take, I was doing karate. I didn't have to do gymnastics anymore. And these are all things that I was asking for because I didn't want to do them because, I was a kid and I was being, I didn't want to do them. And as a kid, not really realizing the importance of that structure and implementing things that are consistent, that even though I don't like it, I should be doing it. So I just didn't want to do it. So I begged to not do it, and I didn't have to do it. So it went from that, and then before I knew it, it was like things were just falling apart. I started kicking it with different people. I started hanging out with kind of the rougher crowd. I started, listening to different music. I started pushing the envelope with the type of music I liked, and was listening to rap and all this stuff, which is, my mom had like a good hold on, like, my mom made me feel a certain kind of way to not push it with certain things. You know what I'm saying? And so when it transitioned to my aunt, she didn't give a fuck. So I started doing whatever I wanted to do. By the time I was 12 and a half, by the time I was 12, I was like cutting and self-mutilating and doing things like that. And I was really, really, really depressed, and I think I didn't really even understand why I was so depressed. Obviously, looking back, I needed like intense therapy. I needed groups. I needed to be around with kids who were going through similar things. They did do a little bit of that, but it was never anything that was consistent. My aunt would always get like, just looking at how she is now and kind of gauging what was happening for her. I mean, she was going through her own grieving. And not only that, she's just naturally somebody who, like, it's hard for her to make herself do things that are uncomfortable, like that healing work. So I spent a lot of times in, and I realize this is becoming kind of like my life, my life history, but I feel like it all really reduces. I'm going to get to a main point at the end about why I'm here and what the purpose of all of this even was. So I will come full circle, but I feel like some of this history is important. From the time I was 12 to 17, almost 18, I was in programs and lockdown facilities. I went to a psych ward for a few weeks when I was 12, and because I was cutting and they didn't know what to do. So I was really grieving, but I didn't know. I'm not somebody that it's hard for me to cry. So I would cry rarely. Rarely cried about my mom. I just didn't really know. I was just kind of hardened. The disciplinary schools, the detention centers, the facilities that I went to, in some senses, helped me kind of, because I am the type of person that I am. I don't feel like this is good for everybody, and probably for me has some things that like were bad for me. But as a whole, I feel like the disciplinary schools helped keep me in line, They brainwashed me for sure. So they had me for sure not doing some of the bad things and not listening to some of the bad music and not hanging out with some of the bad kids because I was always scared of getting in trouble. So some of that's good to a certain extent. But it was a very restrictive environment. It was an environment that there was no room for creativity. There was no room for really expressing yourself and being yourself and being mad for being sent away. For me, being sent away at 12 years old, barely a year after my mom died, only now, and I'm 37, I just had my birthday, only now really kind of makes me mad. I think it's always been there, but like I'm having this full awareness and kind of full circle thing this birthday for some reason. I feel like parents who have problems with their kids, you know, and I say this now, I have a daughter who's almost 18, so we almost there. So I've done a good job, and I have a 5-year-old who's wild and very different from her older sister. So we'll see how that goes. But I honestly feel like when you have a child who's wilding out, acting crazy, it's a reflection of what's going on with the parent. And so there's got to be work that the parent is willing to do. I turned 18, had a baby when I was 19. I was a very, very, so I won't go into all of my relationships that I had, but that was a tumultuous situation to say the least. We were both really young, very immature, and very wounded. The main point of this video that I really want to drive home is I really have done some contemplation this year for this birthday and really have kind of let this idea simmer about adoption and about my role and about why and about what my purpose is here in life. And I always get these insights when I work out. And in the garage where I work out, I have my whole little setup. I have the Honduran flag hanging from the ceiling along with Brazil and Burma, Myanmar. And I'll be working out and I look at my flag and I'll start thinking about my birth mom. And I just get these, it just kind of hit me. The other time it hit me was when I was graduating college. I was getting my AA degree. And I realized, oh, my birth mother in some way or another felt like I could handle this. She knew that she was a tough broad and that I would be a tough broad too. And in some ways, I felt like she was sending me away with the duty to break ancestral bonds and patterns. She knew I would be the one to sever the cord and help the family release its pain, right? Maybe she didn't think it through quite like that, but maybe she did. But that's what came to me. A strong sense of like this warrior spirit, this like, I'm the one here to do it, which made me think about my birth and what's everybody's purpose, regardless if you're adopted or not. A lot of people have heavy issues surrounding their birthdays with not feeling wanted, you know, by their blood mothers and fathers. And what helped me kind of renew my love for myself and for my purpose was I realized that God and I, you and God, or source, or energy, or spirit, or whatever you call it, whatever you feel is the governing energies, they and I decided together to come down here and do this incarnation because we believed we could do it. He believed, they believed that I could do it. They believed that I could break patterns. They believed that I could come here and bring light into the world in a unique way, unlike anybody else. We each have a beautiful, unique presence that comes with gifts that can be relayed in a very special way. And I feel like it's my job, it's our job, it's each one of our jobs to find what it is that makes us sparkle so that we can then, when other people see people sparkle, it makes them want to sparkle too. It's my job, I agreed with God, to come in and have this story, to have been adopted this way, and then having my mom die. That was my story that I carried as a burden for many, 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 many years, right? And only in the past year or two have I begun to release and detach from that story and realize, oh, yes, it's still my story. That's mine. That's for me. But it's for me to heal and then be able to use it as some sort of impetus for growing or healing or creating. God, source, light, spirit, our ancestors, our loved ones who've passed, our guides, ascended masters like Jesus and Mother Mary and Buddha. They want us here so that we can create and play and try different things that spark our excitement. We are living embodiments, living incarnations that God sent down here, sparks of Him, sparks of light, seeking our own truth so that other people can see it, so that they're inspired to go find theirs too. So whether you're adopted or not, or are in foster care, or are a parent or an adult in the life of some child or a youth who's in the system somehow, it's our job to find the light within ourselves so that we can better set up that young person to find their light as well. So I think that kind of concludes this video. Thank you for being here. I didn't have a plan when I sat down. I knew that topics like these needed to be more kind of like what kind of comes up is what's going to come up. So I hope this felt like it came full circle for you. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you for listening, for spending time with me. This is my journey, but you are now a part of it. So I love you guys. Happy motherfucking 2021. Be easy, take care of yourself, and spread the love. Thanks, guys.